Hey, welcome back.
Bob, we miss your announcements in the morning. It also wakes people up to the fact that we're starting to daven too. As opposed to just a clap on the our learning sponsors. Year of learning, Evelyn Blachor in memory of his sister. Chaya Rachel Bas Isser, friends of Leonie Meiselman, Leah Sabra Bas Chanach Zundel, friends of Mela Skotsky, Moshe Zelig ben Mordechai, Martin Lipman and family, in memory of his wife, Malka Chana Bas Pinchas. A month of learning by Perry and Jill Meltzer, in memory of his mother, Malka Bas Baruch, and his sister Golda Leah Bas David Halevi. Tova and Leo Zimmer, in memory of her mother, Henya Bas Reberel, and her father, Aaron ben Yosef Mordechai. Bri Pizer, in memory of her husband, Rav Yisrael Chaim ben David. Stanley Presser, in memory of his mother, Leah Bas Yehuda, his mother-in-law, Golda Bas Leber, and his wife, Ruchel Mincha Bat Moshe. Rabbi Dr. Yankee and Malki Honig. In memory of his mother, Rabbanit Hensha Ita Bat Chaim Yehuda. David and Sharon Karpel, Rabbi Tzvi and Robin Karpel, in memory of David and Tzvi's father, Zeb Moshe ben Shlomo Yaakov. Carol and Josh Sanborn, in memory of her father, Yoshua Shia ben Moshe Yehuda HaKohen. Sarah Alpert and family, in memory of her husband, Harav Tzvi Lipa ben Hillel. Josh and Carol Sanborn, in memory of his mother, Chiyena Bas Aryeh and his father, Shmuel Aryeh ben Baruch. Bri Pizer, in memory of her mother, Razel Bat Shammai. Leo and Tova Zimmer again, in memory of his father, Tzvi ben Israel, and his mother, Yocheved Bat Yaakov Menachem Mendel. A week of learning by Chaim Aber, in memory of his mother, Frida Mattel Bashmayahu, by Charlie Gelfenstein, in memory of his wife, Menucha Sarah Bat Yechiel Michel. Michael and Judith Poretsky, in memory of his brother, Chaim Tzvi ben Gershom. Mark Linder, in memory of his father, Chaim ben Yecheskel Elimelech. Barbara Hollander, in memory of her father, Shmuel Shlomo ben Yehuda Baruch. Judy and Jack Schiff, in memory of her mother, Chaya Chava Bas Menachem Mendel. Today being the 20th of February, we have a day of learning by Mel Grossman, in memory of his wife, Rachel Bas Moshe, by Sharon Sittner, in memory of her father, Yosef Mordechai ben Yaakov Leib, by Aliza Paleyev, in memory of her brother, Yerachmiel Dan ben Avram Yitzchak Halevi. Shem is heaven Aliyah, Krank Rafia Velti Yeshir Shem Atzliah, and Chol B'nai Yisrael a good bench year. Okay. I believe that this is, since it's not a leap year this year, right? Okay, that's why we tend to have, so both Adar Aleph, usually Adar Aleph and Adar Bet are being included. So that's why the increased number of learning sponsors at this time. Okay. All right. Okay.
If it were a leap year, tomorrow would be
Chodesh. Right. Right. Okay.
the other.
In Art Scroll, how far does volume 1 and Nazir go to, or is it all in one volume?
No, it's
Two volumes?
terminates shortly.
At what point?
Lamed Dalet, I think.
Lamed Dalet?
Yeah.
Okay, that would mean that as of Sunday, this coming Sunday, the 26th, now you ask, okay, that is Lamed Dalet. So after that, you would need, if you're using Art Scroll, volume 2, okay? So since I have that at home and not bringing it back and forth, that's why. Okay, we are back to our Gemara on Kafchet Amud Aleph. Okay, we're still dealing with this whole question, basically as animal equivalent to money, and what's the implications in that situation. We saw the end of the previous daf. O min hakala ala chamura sharei adam megalech al ma'ot aviv v'nezirut. And then we went to the top, Bisman Shehain Stumim, below Bisman Shehain Mefurashin. Is that the situation? Okay. Talmud Lomar Kivro. Again, Bikivro hu yotze, ve'eno yotze, v'korban aviv. That's where we stopped, I believe, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we're at the top of Kafchet. It's 3 lines down. Okay, from the situation. So we're still coming back to this issue now, particularly of converting the chatat from one sin to another is the concern of the Gemara. Okay. Yechol, says the Gemara, I might have thought. All right, let's put it that way. Lo yeitzeh b'ma'ot shehefrish, and I would read into the Gemara there aviv in that case, right? That I understand, says the Gemara. I might have thought, since he can't utilize the money that his deceased father, who never completed his Nazarethship, because he didn't use that money to go through the final process, purification process there. Okay, completion rather of Nazareth process, Nazarethship process, right? Afilu min hakala al hakala, even when it was for one lesser chatas, for another lesser chatas, min chamura al chamura, or from a more stringent chatas. What happened to Erwin this morning? Okay. Okay. All right. So another chatas. No. No, because I saw he was in shul this morning and I don't see him in his regular seat. Okay? Everything okay there, Mark? Harvey, yeah? Okay. Okay. Aval yotzei b'korban, but maybe, says the thinking, aval yotzei b'korban, shehefrish la'atzmo min hakala al chamura u'min chamura al hakala, that maybe he could use a chatas offering, okay, that belongs to him from one kind of sin to another kind of sin. In other words, from a lesser to a greater or greater to lesser. Okay? However, again, the pasuk says, Talmud Loma, Korbano al chatato. That's where it says, his offering, okay, on his sin. Ad sheyehe korbano l'shum chat'o, implying that it must be the fact that his sin must be, okay, in other words, his offering must be brought for his particular sin. Okay, his particular sin, that particular one. Okay, what happens? So the Gemara raises another question. Yachol, I might have thought again, lo yetzeh b'behema shehefrish la'atzmo, that maybe he doesn't fulfill, right? He can't use that animal that was set aside for the chatas for his own sin. Min hakala al hakala, or min chamura al hachamura, from the lesser to on another lesser, or from a more stringent on another more stringent. Afilu min hakala al hachamura, or min hachamura al hakala, or maybe from the more stringent on the less, or the less stringent on the more stringent, right? Shekain im hifrish behema al hachelev, because were that to be the case, then if he had set aside, right, a korban, all right, an animal, okay, for the eating of, let's say, forbidden fat, ve'evi al adam, and instead he brought that same animal for the eating of blood, al hadam ve'evi al hachelev, or he had done the reverse, set aside the chatas animal for the sin of eating blood, but then thinking that he could bring it for the sin of eating forbidden fat, shaharei lo ma'al v'lo kiper, because in that situation, we would say he wasn't committing a misuse of the animal. It was still being brought for chatas, okay? But it does not bring atonement because it does not cover the particular sin for which he is guilty and this needs to bring the chatas. You want to add?
Yeah, it has to add the word me'ila here.
Right,
because-
velo ma'al. That's
No,
what he
if
said.
if you commit me'ila, then the money or the object becomes stolen.
Right,
So if there was me'ila, you would be able to it would be, you'd be yotze on the other.
you
sin.
could get kapara, but that doesn't mean that,
Right, I'm just
that's
saying
the
that
point.
That's why it has
Because
the
it-
word me'ila there.
right, velo ma'al, he does not commit misuse, okay? But he would nevertheless be able to gain atonement, okay? Aval, says our Mishnah, but, okay, yotze b'ma'ot, okay, but maybe he could fulfill that requirement with the coins, shehefrish la'atzmo min hakala lekala, okay, with the money that had been designated for the chatas offering, for a lenient prohibition on another lenient prohibition, umin chamura lechamura, or money designated for a more stringent prohibition, transgression, let's put it that way, okay, for another stringent transgression. Min hachamura lekala, if that's the case, then from the more stringent to the more lenient. Min hakala lechamura, or from the more lenient to the more stringent. Shakain im hefrish la'atzmo ma'od, okay, as in the case, for example, where he may have set aside, okay, monies, all right, for himself regarding a situation, minachelev, okay, for transgression of eating the forbidden fat, vehevi al hadam, okay, and he would bring that to cover the chatas for the blood, or al hadam vehevi al achelev, or set aside the money for the transgression of the blood, okay, and brings it instead, that money, to buy the chatas for the prohibition of the forbidden fat. Shaharei ma'al, because there, in that case, we would say there is the commission of, okay, of misuse, v'chiper, but he would still gain his, okay, still gain his atonement. However, what happens even there? Talmud Lomar, the pasuk tells us, al chatato, it must be brought for the particular, again, explicit sin. Ad sheyehe korbano l'shem chato, until that it is brought, okay, for the particular, he must bring that particular offering for that particular sin. Okay? Katani mihad, says the Gemara. Nevertheless, we learn that it teaches the phrase behema, okay, that he brings the animal. My love afilu ba'alat mum. Are we saying here, since our whole Braita did not distinguish between a tmima and a mum, an animal with a blemish or not, might I assume then that I could bring an animal, that if I had the animal, and okay, and it was discovered to have a mum, I could therefore sell it, okay, and therefore that's like money, okay, and transfer it. Okay, that's the whole point of the question. Lo, no, says the Gemara, tmima. No, when we're referring to a behema, the animal that was brought, it must be an animal that is suitable for offering. Okay, all right. Sid's not here this morning either. Okay, all right. Aval ba'alat mum. So if that's the case, what about the status of an animal that does possess a blemish? What's its condition? Kistuma damya. Are we going to say that that's like unspecified money? My area. What then is the reason, particularly the katani ma'ot shehefrishaviv, that our Braita specifically taught about monies that the father had set aside? Litne ba'alat mum, let our Braita teach it and use the phrase that we could have used here and saying, could have put aside an animal that had a mum. And therefore we would realize that in that case too, an animal could be almost considered like money in that case, but it may only be unsolicited or unspecified money. Okay? Hachanami, here too, says the Gemara, Dilma chazia ladame. Perhaps here we're saying that that animal was suitable for some monetary value, all right? And therefore, what happens to dame, hainu ma'ot. And when we say it has valuable financial value, therefore it then would be equivalent to money in that case. All right. New Mishnah. This is going to make the previous one look easy. Okay.
This one's easy.
What, the new one?
Yeah.
That's what I said. It makes the previous one. Okay. All right. Matnitin says the following. All right. Let's assume, okay, that the wife has made the vow. Okay. And she set aside her animal. Okay. And then by the time that the husband hears about it, at what point is the process going on? Okay, that they have perhaps slaughtered the animal and are ready to sprinkle the blood or sprinkling the blood. Okay, so our mission. Okay, well, it may be. I'm not going to emphasize chatas because one of the sources I saw said it could be any one of the three. Okay, okay, could be any one of the three. It may be that the chatas is done first. Okay, but in any case. So what happens? Our Mishnah tells us, Nizrak aleha echad min hadamim. And that's why the Mishnah says one of those, the blood from one of them, one of the three, okay, Nazirut offerings, right?
So normally if the husband hears about Nazirut on the last day of Nazirut.
That's what we're talking about.
Okay, 30, she's gone ahead. She's observed 30 days. Fine.
And he didn't realize beforehand?
And he didn't hear about it till
It
then.
was in Panama.
Ah,
Okay, sure, wherever he was, whatever the situation. Okay, all right. Then suddenly he hears about it. Okay,
It rushes to the base.
okay, he goes to the whatever. All right, and it happens. Eino yachol lahafer. He is not able to revoke it, says our Mishnah. Okay, because the blood has already been spritzed, and as a result, the part of the process of.
and he couldn't make the call.
No, he couldn't make it. Okay, couldn't catch the Uber either.
They have
Okay.
a guy in the base of the
Okay.
bus that says, turn off yourself.
Okay, what happened? All right. However, notice now as we go on, the point is, okay, so once it would seem to imply then from Tanakam that once the process of I'm going to say completing the Nazirut vow through the offerings has begun, it no longer is viable for him to be Mayfair that Nazirut vow. That would seem to be the position of Tanakam. We go on, however. Rabbi Akiva Omer, he says, Afilu nishchata aleh echat mikol habehemo. Even if one of the animals has been slaughtered, but the blood has not been spritzed yet. Okay? So what happens there? Eino yachol lahefer. He is, says Rabbi Akiva, he cannot revoke the Nazareth vow. Okay? B'med varim amorim, what are we talking about? B'tiglachet hatahara. We're talking about the situation where we have the offerings and the hair cutting as part of the finishing the Nazareth vow. Okay? Ava b'tiglachet hatum'ah. But whereas we're talking in another situation where somebody during their Nazarethship has become tameh, and they must then still get a haircut and bring offerings, and then resume their Nazarethship. Okay? All right. What happens there? Yefer. In that situation, okay, they would be able to revoke. Shehu Yechol Lomar. Why? Because he could say, "Iafshe be'isha menuvelet." Okay, it is detestable to me to have a wife that is in a situation where she is being over on one of the two aspects that a husband can clearly be Mayfair, either self-denial, which in this case is denial of wine, perhaps, okay, or regarding the couple's relations, right? So that's where we go, right? Now, Rabbi Meir, however, according to one view, says as follows, Omer, even with regards to the situation of the haircutting for the end of the Nazareth term, there too, okay, he could still revoke. Why? Shehu Yechol Lomar, because the husband can say, "Iafshi be'isha miglachet," because I can't put up with a wife who's bald-headed wife. Okay, all right.
If a wife is torn for any other reason besides neither, can they have relations or no? No. Any tuma would
Right, precludes that. Okay, all right. Now we're going to go into the Gemara. All right, any kind of tuma. Okay, matnitin. Right. Okay. Right, those kinds of situations. All right, matnitin our Mishnah, the lo Rabbi Eliezer cannot be according to Rabbi Eliezer. Why? The Rabbi Eliezer, because we're to be Rabbi Eliezer. Haomer tiglachet me'akevet, because Rabbi Eliezer holds that the hair cutting is an essential part of the Nazareth completion process. And without that, the person has not completed their term of Nazarethship and remains in the status of a Nazareth. Okay? V'kevan delo gilcha asira bechamra. And since she did not get her hair cut, okay, she is still forbidden with wine. V'kevan de'itla nivu matze mefer. And therefore, because this is a situation that's detestable to him, okay, because it's self-denial, again, one of the conditions that allow him to be Mayfair, matze Mayfair, we can find that therefore his argument, Rabbi Eliezer, is that he can then still be Mayfair that well. Right? Ubaha plige. But our Gemara goes on with a question of Lashon here, but maybe this is what they're arguing about as we go to the next Amud. Tana Didan, our Tanakama Didan tells us, Savar Kevan de Isbarik Aleh Dam, that once the blood has been spritzed, right, from any one of the three korbanot, and it may be the Chatas first, the Alter Sharia B'chamra, she is immediately then permitted to have wine. Okay? Vaha lit la nivu. And in that case, therefore, there would not be any despicability. All right? There would be no longer self-denial as the basis. V'Rabbi Akiva savar afilu ishtachitat behem. And Rabbi Akiva holds that even once the animal is slaughtered, eino yachol lahafer. Right? He is not able to be Mayfair the vow, mishum hefsed kadoshim, because there would be a loss of animals for the Mizbeach. It would be a wasted animal. Okay? Now, okay, what is the situation? Because, all right, if he goes ahead, if the animal is slaughtered and then he's Mayfair. Okay, therefore that, if we're going to say that that revokes totally the vow, then it's no longer a Nazareth, then you've got the animal that's no longer able to be used
Especially if
on a
it's a
mizbeach. Okay, and particularly if it were a different one of the other animals, it's one thing. But if it's a chatas, then it's particularly an issue. Gemara goes on. Matkif la Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Zera challenges with the following bright. Va'amai, and why is that the case? Lizrok daman shalo lishman. So he says, let us think of the following. Maybe Rabbi Akiva, okay, is thinking of the following, that here we're talking about a rabbinic enactment. Let them just sprinkle the blood, okay, even if it's not for that particular purpose. Viyatir basar ba'achila, and then that would permit, okay, the offering to be eaten, okay. Mi lo tanya, because aren't we taught elsewhere in the following example, right? Mi lo tanya, namely kivsei atzeret, that the animals that are brought on the holiday of Atzeret, on Shavuot, sheshachtan shelo lishman, that they can be slaughtered, okay, not for the purpose of the Yom Tov there, oh, sheshachtan lefnei zmanan, or if they were to be slaughtered before their appropriate time, oh, la'achar zmanan, or even after their appropriate time, hadam yizrak v'habasar ye'achel, the blood is sprinkled and the meat may be eaten. Ve'im haita Shabbat, and were it to be Shabbat, and that Seret to coincide, lo yizrak, the blood would not be sprinkled. Ve'im zarak, and were somebody to make the mistake, okay, and sprinkle it nevertheless, kurtza lahaktir imurin la'arav, okay, that would be acceptable then to offer those animal parts after Shabbos, okay?
The evidence.
So that's the case. Amrei, I might say, therefore, idishachat ula oshlamim. Maybe that might work if we're talking about the ola offering or the shlamim offering. Hachanami, okay, here too, elahacha b'mayas kina. But here, what are we really dealing with? Kigon sheshachat chatat b'reisha, as in the case where they may have slaughtered the chatas first. All right, then that would clearly be a concern of Rabbi Akiva that there's a wasted animal. Okay, because it couldn't be used for anything else. Keditznan, as we learn elsewhere in a Mishnah, im gilach al achat mishloshtan yatsa, that if they had their hair cut regarding one of the three animals, they have fulfilled.
After one of the.
Right, one of the three animals. Yivimed varim amorim. What are we talking about there when we refer again to Gilead? B'tiglach tahara. Okay, we're talking about the haircut for the completion of the term of Nazarethship. Aval b'tiglach tum'ah. But when we're talking about the haircut that one needs to take when they're a Nazareth and they've become tameh, and they must cut their hair, bring sacrifices, and then after that start their Nazarethship all over again. Yea, fair. There we could say can revoke. Because he could argue then that I don't want a wife who is despicable. The Rabbi Meir says, Omer, afilu b'tiklach tahara yefer. Even with the hair cutting for purification, the husband could still revoke. Mipnei sheichol omar, i'afshi b'isha megalechet. I don't want a bald-headed wife. Okay. Right? The Tanakama, Amarlach, and what would Tanakama respond in that situation? Efshar b'peya nachrit. Okay, wear a shadel. Okay. Now, what happens? V'Rabbi Meir Sava, v'Peya Nachrit, Aides Dezuhama. However, Rabbi Meir is of the opinion that wearing a sheitel at times, I'm going to say, okay, particularly in their day, that was if it was made from human hair, okay. Koren, by the way, has a long note on this, which is just as an aside, gives you a very interesting approach on the whole question of sheitlach made from human hair versus animal hair. Okay, and the fact that in those days they did not necessarily wash, the sheitels were not well made, and they did not wash them frequently. And that's why women also wore some sort of a cap containing perfume on top of their sheitel. Okay, and that's how we can help us understand why Rabbi Meir says the Aide de Zuhama, that because there was an odor with the sheitel, right? Lo nechale, that maybe for that reason it wasn't comfortable for the husband to have her wearing a sheitel of that point. And we will not get into the discussion right now of the pros and cons of sheitel. But okay, however, it's an interesting piece from the Gemara. A new Mishnah. Okay, we go on. Matnitin. Okay, here we saw this Mishnah previously, where the father is able to make his son a Nazir, but not the mother. Says our Mishnah, Ha'ish madir et beno benazir, ve'ein ha'isha maderet et bena benazir. The father can take a vow making his son a Nazareth. The mother cannot make such a vow. Ketzad, how is it possible? What happens, says the Mishnah? Gilech, the young man himself shave, or shagilchuhu krovav, or his other family members shaved him, okay? As a sign that they're objecting. Furthermore, Micha, the young man himself objects, okay? O shemichu krovav, or the other family members voice an objection. Haita lo behema mufreshet, okay? If there was an animal then already set aside, okay, already designated, specified, hachatat tamut, the animal designated for the chatas must be allowed to die. Va'ala tikarev olah, and the olah is to be offered as an olah. Ushlamim yikravu shlamim, and the shlamim must be offered as a shlamim. V'ne'echalin liyom echad, and it needs to be eaten in one day, as was the practice for a Nazir. Ve'einan te'unim lechem, but it does not require any bread stuffs, loaves, whatever. Okay, hayulo ma'ot stumim, and in this case, if there was money set aside in a lump sum, unspecified, yiplu l'nedava, that money needs to go for voluntary offerings. Ma'ot mefurashim, okay, but if the money had been specified, by the way, notice the language of the Mishnah here spells out each of the different possibilities, okay? The money that had been specified for the chatas must be tossed into the Dead Sea. Lo nehanin v'lo mo'elin, one cannot benefit from it, nor is one subject to misuse. Demei olah, the money for the olah, yaviu olah, must be used to bring a burnt offering, an olah. Umo'elin ba, and it could be subject to misuse for it. Demei shlamim, the money for shlamim, yaviu shlamim, must be used to bring shlamim. V'ne'echalin liyom echad, and it's eaten in for one day. Ve'inan tu'unin lechem, but one also again does not bring any loaves. So, right, and therefore the Gemara we're going to pick up. Oh goodness, tomorrow is long. Just what we needed for Rosh Chodesh, huh? Okay. So I'll just pick up a tiny bit. Ish, okay, and aval isha lo, okay. So then he says the man, okay, is subject to the vow, right? Son and the wife not, okay. Shalom, my tama. What's the reasoning? Rabbi Yochanan is then going to give us Rabbi Yochanan Amar halacha hi benazir. Okay, it's
part of the halakha.
okay, part of halacha Moshe Sinai with regarding to a nazir, and we'll pick up with Rabbi Yossi tomorrow morning. Okay, in terms of that the particular gemara.
Thank you, Robert.
Yes.
Yes.
Company you?
Oh.
No. Where's my driver?
Okay,
Driver.
okay.
Thank you, Rabbi Green.
We're not going to Carl?
12:30?
Yes.
Are we going to Carl today?
Oh, I guess.